Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about data security at a biotech company. I am Joe Gregory, and I'm the head of customer success at Normalyze. I'm very excited to introduce you to our special guest, Jade Graziano. She is a security engineer at Ginkgo Bioworks. Hi, Jade.
Hey, Joe. Thanks so much for having me here today. I'm super glad to be with you all at Black Hat in spirit. Sad I won't be able to be there in person, but we get to do this. So thank you.
Yes, thanks again for giving us this opportunity. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to Ginkgo Bioworks.
Sure. So going back a little bit, I'm still fairly new in my professional career. I graduated from Bentley University only 3 years ago now. I pursued a computer information systems degree there, but when I went into school as a freshman, I truly had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to major in finance and accounting. Then I took my first class and failed my first exam and I hated it. But the Bentley curriculum was super unique in that they help pivot you towards what classes and the general education curriculum you take to best. And for me, that was the computer science courses. And from there, I fell in love with it. I really enjoyed my time there, so much so that eventually I became a tutor for the classes that I had taken in the past. So I was able to project my love for the computer information systems major to the rest of my peers as well. But then with that major, they put into our minds that there were basically two routes you could take with a computer science or a CIS degree like I had. One of them was more people facing or customer facing as a consultant or something of the type. And then the alternative route was something a little more back-end development, software, DevOps roles, that sort of thing. And because I really enjoyed what I did tutoring, I knew that I always had enjoyed working with people face-to-face and hand in hand. So I ultimately ended up choosing the consultancy route. And that landed me at a company where I was for about a year and a half. And luckily enough, Ginkgo was actually my primary client at the time. So I got to know the company and the security team super intimately before I was actually brought on board full time. So for that year and a half, pretty much entirely, I was basically a Ginkgo employee too. And then not too much later, I was looking for sort of a career change and a lifestyle change. And the timing happened to align properly. And the current CISO, Chris Mellon, ultimately ended up stealing me from my previous role and brought me to where I am today. But I really loved the team and the people. And I was the first female on the team. And then we doubled our numbers. And now I'm one of two females on the team. So we've grown exponentially. But that's ultimately what brought me to the security team and to Ginkgo.
That's very impressive and an amazing opportunity. I'm glad you took advantage of that. You talked a bit about your efforts in the community. I know in previous conversations, you and I have talked a bit about it. I'd love to share more about that.
Being involved in the community is something that I've always really loved, whether it was, in my free time volunteering or with the company. So one thing that I absolutely love about Ginkgo Bioworks is that they're an extremely diverse company. And one of their primary initiatives that we have is the Ginkgo Bioworks Cultivate Fellowship. And it's basically a week-long program that has benefits that far extend just the week. So there's things such as scholarships involved and also mentorship programs as well. That was actually just about a month ago now that I was able to participate in that. And it brings in Black students from all over the United States that are pursuing different STEM majors. And what they get to do is they get to take a tour around the different Ginkgo Bioworks labs. And in addition to that, they also get a tour just of the greater Boston area, including some of the great schools in the area like Harvard and MIT. And it's really just to ultimately show them all of the different paths that you can take with a STEM degree. I know I don't have a conventional cybersecurity background, but still I ended up in a security role today. And I know a lot of my coworkers on the security team, we also just as a whole have all different sorts of backgrounds and previous experiences that all ended up in the same place together here as one. So I really loved that fellowship program. It was a great opportunity to talk face to face with all of these freshmen and sophomores in schools that, are going through what I did not that long ago and trying to figure out where they want to take their career professionally and how to navigate the challenges involved in that.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for diving into that. It's all inspiring. You mentioned the tour of the labs, Ginkgo Bioworks labs. I was grateful enough to get the tour. Well, thank you. So why don't you talk a bit about what Ginkgo Bioworks does?
Sure. Ginkgo is a super amazing company. Our main mission is to make biology easier to engineer. And in that, like, easier, there is more accessible. And I think that it's an amazing mission. Biology is truly everywhere. And the offerings that we have in building DNA, cells, organisms, you name it, it's absolutely limitless what biology can do. Just it being more readily accessible is something that is super important, I believe, for the future.
Obviously, there's a lot of data. What does the security program look like, and your priorities? Especially, you've been now working with them for a while, both as a consultant and now a full-time employee.
About 2 years ago now, where I was consultant to now, we've seen a tremendous amount of growth, not even with the security team, but just Ginkgo as a whole. About 2 years ago, we were just preparing for our IPO. We're now a publicly listed company, so a lot of things have changed and shifted in the security space. So we obviously have to scale to the growth of the company. Before the IPO, we were that startup company with dreams of going public. And since then, we've achieved that goal and then some. So we've had to adjust to that accordingly. Because of the nature of the Ginkgo business, all of our intellectual property is data stored in the cloud. So we've really had to work on posturing our security and with that mindset, and keeping in mind that data will grow. So we want to protect our assets at all costs and make sure that we're ready for anything in the case of, natural disaster, human error, whatever it might be.
Talk about your security team. How's that structured? And you talked about hyper growth. So how do you manage that?
The security team has definitely grown twofold since a year ago when I was still in the consultant role, which is amazing. I used to report directly to the CISO, but since then we have kind of split into 3 different subsections of one team. So we've got our security operations team, that is, our incident response and remediation. And then we've also got 2 teams, the VAPT team, which is the vulnerability and penetration testing team, and then the CTIDP team, which is the cyber threat intelligence and data loss prevention team. Those are our 3 priorities across our security organization. And then we've also got compliance, which is largely where I focus most of my time and effort.
I appreciate that. I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of the team. I think very sharp and aligned with priorities of data security. Once you started, looking into data security, what were the challenges you faced? What have you learned from that?
One of the main takeaways we have is that our data is everywhere throughout the company, whether it's through our messengers or our infrastructure or our data lakes. Our data is everywhere. We had 3 primary concerns that we were looking to resolve or expand upon. So we've got our data classification, access governance, which kind of goes into our compliance goals, and just overall visibility for us as a security team. We are part of a larger organization called the Digital Technology Team. So under Ginkgo Bioworks, we fall under digital tech. And because of that, that's where we work on building our homegrown systems and maintaining our infrastructure, our networking. And so we have a different set of priorities, and it really just growing and succeeding so much in the past few years. We've really just wanted to improve our overall data security posture.
You mentioned cloud data. What does your cloud data landscape look like today?
Primarily, we leverage AWS. We've got a little bit of GCP, and then we also use Snowflake heavily. The 2 big issues that we wanted to resolve were definitely our visibility into those 2 tools. They're not managed by the security team natively, so our visibility into them was more limited than we would have liked just for our security posture as a whole. So increasing our visibility was a huge motivating factor for acquiring the Normalyze tool.
Yeah, and I think especially we hear in Snowflake that access governance and management can be a challenge, and obviously in AWS that's a big focus point, especially once you know where your sensitive data is. So how are you solving those challenges?
Initially, one of the projects that I had first been brought on board for was the DRBC project within Ginkgo, and that is the Disaster Recovery and Business Continuity Plan. So that was kind of my first step into protecting all of our assets against potential data loss. So in the case of, natural disaster, data center goes down, whatever it might be, we wanted to have a plan in place to get our systems back up and running with not too much downtime. But in addition to that, we've also evolved from that, and we really just needed to, specifically in the compliance space, we need to get a better grasp of where our cloud data was in regards to the different regulations that we have to abide by for all of our different contracts and for being a publicly listed company now. So those are two of the initiatives that have contributed to getting where we wanted to be.
And what does your technology and your tooling, how does that help you in data security today?
Our former tool wasn't as user-friendly as we would have liked. So our tool stack overall, we've just been trying to kind of bolster and pivot towards, our ever-changing and evolving needs. We just really needed more visibility into our data and knowing what we were looking for. It was a hard place to know where to start. So we did have to work hand in hand with our DevOps team to search for a better alternative. And ironically, about a year ago today, I was at DEF CON out in Vegas, and I attended a cloud security training with a Normalyze. And that's where we found the tool initially. And ever since then, it was just the first glimpse into something that I was like, wow, this is something that we absolutely need. We needed a tool that provided us, that visibility that we were looking for. And on top of that, it coupled with the compliance regulations that we needed to abide by and so much more, such as our data classification.
Glad that happened. It's been great working with you and the team. So, as far as results, I know you've had a big impact in your short time there. The journey is just getting started, but what results can you share from the journey so far, and what's coming next?
Of course. So as a result of implementing the new tool, we have just overall better visibility into all of our cloud data, including security posture, of course, but also monitoring our overall compliance status, which is a huge concern of mine personally, given my day-to-day work. Similarly related to that is monitoring our access governance. Tools like AWS and Snowflake specifically definitely are challenging tools when it comes to who has access to what. So just having that better understanding of what that looks like has been life-changing for us.
It's fantastic. Yes. And I'm looking forward to continuing the journey. And thanks again for coming today. Trying to wrap up in general, I think, data discovery and classification, access governance, compliance, I think that's a general theme. And it sounds like it was right down, the priority of your team. Also, I really want to make sure everyone checks out the Ginkgo Bioworks Cultivate Fellowship Program. I've been very impressed. I got one question for you. If you were going to give one piece of advice to teams out there facing similar challenges, what would it be?
For me, I think it would be to know what you have out there in the cloud and protect it like your life depends on it. Data has far and wide become one of the most valuable assets to everyone. And the potential loss of your intellectual property and your data far exceeds just a simple monetary value. There are far more opportunity costs that could potentially hurt a company or just you as an individual when it comes down to it. So protecting those assets, it's essential, especially from the security standpoint.
Excellent. Thanks, Jade. And I really appreciate you joining us here and giving us an insight into what you've been doing at Ginkgo Bioworks.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.